Since I recently got my hands on the Mavic Air 2, I just couldn't help myself but compare it against the Mavic 2 Pro, its smaller brother the Mavic Mini, and its predecessor the Mavic Air 1. This is going to be a video series, this one being all about the camera itself, and to be more precise, it's gonna be all about comparing the photos this drone can take. The next video in the series is going to be about video, nighttime footage, and so on. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon for the next month, because I'm going to post a video like this or two per week. I got them all outside in different days with rain and wind, but what will focus the most on this video is going to be the photo comparison between all these drones. I am going to mainly compare them against the Mavic Air 2, but I will also compare them between each other. Now let's start looking at the pictures. I am going to first show the pics to you side by side. It was a cloudy day, so there wasn't much light in the shot. That means more potential noise in the picture. I will also compare a better daylight picture between all of the drones, but bear with me. Now let's zoom in a lot in the photo. Do you like one more than the other? Well, let me spoil things for you. The one on the right is the Mavic Air 2, and I have to say that indeed you can see the text from the market being easier to understand. The foliage is a bit clearer and less noise in dark spots. Even the parking spot sign has better contrast and definition on the Mavic Air 2. If we're taking at this building, we can again see that the original Mavic Air has a difficult time keeping up with higher ISO values, as there is more noise in the image. If we move to another part of the image, we see that the colors on the right are more true to life, as there are more green and brown tones in the leaves, and the red color surrounding the triangle sign is a bit more visible. For some reason, the tree trunk seems more visible in the Mavic Air image. As I zoom in a crack in the street, we can see it's better represented by the Mavic Air 2 image. Actually way better, and considering I'm living in Romania, I'm sure that wasn't covered up in the 2 minutes I changed the drone. And again, there is also much more noise on the Mavic 1 photo. Now I couldn't help myself but also take an HDR photo with the Mavic Air 2 here on the right. And it looks quite different, as you see. Same shot, way different results. The sky has way more details as well as the rest of the picture at the same time. HDR comes from high dynamic range imaging, and this makes the darker parts of the photo as well as the brighter parts be exposed just as well. As we can see in this dark spot of the image, the Mavic Air 2 with HDR does a better job at showing the details in the shadows. Definitely a superior way of taking a photo, especially if you're not a professional photographer. The sky also makes for a huge difference in the image, where there are barely any details in the clouds for the non-HDR image, while the HDR one is completely something else. Now let's compare the photos of the same drones, but by daylight, where low noise isn't that big of an issue anymore. As you can see, both photos look really good, but I can see for sure that the colors in the Mavic Air 2 are more accurate to what the eye can see, and the overall prettier image the better. Let's start zooming in the same spots and you be the judge. Now that we covered the photos of the Mavic Air 2 versus Mavic Air 1, let's go to the next pair. The Mavic Air 2 versus the Mavic 2 Pro. As you can see, when zooming in the same amount, the Mavic 2 image looks closer, more zoomed in. This makes the comparison a bit unfair, as it simply has a narrow field of view. However, in this lower light situation, you can obviously see a huge difference between the half-inch sensor and the 1-inch sensor here. There is much more detail in the old paint on the side of the building block in the Mavic 2 image, as well as less noise in my opinion. The Mavic 2 also wins in terms of how readable the text is, but keep in mind that it's a bit more zoomed in by default. Frankly, when looking at different photos, things change a bit, so in this example I like how the wall texture and noise looks a bit more on the Mavic Air 2 than the Mavic 2, but there's a bit more detail in the tree on the Mavic 2 Pro. Here's another example that shows the superior low-light capability of the Mavic 2 Pro compared to most drones on the market. The crack in the floor again, looking good in both examples, but this time I actually like it a bit better in the Mavic Air 2, weird enough. You can obviously tell more about the image quality by looking at shots like these, where you can see the details much better in certain spots than in the Mavic Air 2, but the war is not yet won. Let's compare this Mavic 2 photo with the HDR one from the Mavic Air 2. From afar, I would definitely consider the Mavic Air 2 the winner in this situation. There's more details in the sky and the shadows look better exposed, as expected from an HDR photo. But what happens when we zoom in? Oh well, pretty much the same thing. The image in the Mavic Air 2 is way better exposed now, however the noise is a bit more noticeable, since the ISO has been bumped up a bit in certain spots. Well, let's try again. Now let's compare the sunny time photos between one another to see what we end up with. Both photos are really great this time. I would even say that the Mavic Air 2 looks better in some cases. It seems that in good daylight the difference isn't that big. I would say the Mavic 2 still has better colors when it comes to photos, probably more accurate and well differentiated, but clearly not that big of a difference. Oh look, even the van seems to have grown in size and changed into a Mercedes in the Mavic 2 Pro photo. It has to be the superior camera for sure. Okay, another shot, but this time let's bring out the big guns. The Mavic Air 2 has a new 48 megapixel photo mode that should give amazing details in the photo. So let's see how it actually compares to the already amazing photo of the Mavic 2 Pro. At the first zoom in, we can definitely see better detail in the 48 megapixel Mavic 2 photo than the normal mode, but it still has more noise than the Mavic 2 Pro one. If we look in the shadow areas, the Mavic 2 wins again, with better exposure and clearer image details without much noise. If we zoom in into the foliage a bit more, the details show a bit messed up in the Mavic Air 2 photo, as if they're in a Van Gogh picture or something. Yet the details in the Mavic 2 Pro seem really great still. Although if you zoom out and try to get the whole picture, I admit both pics look really great. I might even say that I like the Mavic Air 2 more personally. Another new addition to the Mavic Air 2 when it comes to photos is the Smart Photo mode that basically adjusts the picture exposure depending on how it detects the scene. So it makes sure not to underexpose the shot if you have too much sky or things like that, which can be very useful. For example, in this shot the Smart mode is on the right side and it exposed it a bit better, as it made the scene a bit more lighted in the shadows show up a bit more and at the expense of losing slightly more detail in the clouds. But I would say that is a good trade-off for showing more detail in the shadows. But always remember you have HDR mode too, which is definitely the best way to expose as much as you can from the shot at the same time, while also getting an interesting effect at the same time. However, there is still one drone we haven't yet compared to the Mavic Air 2, and that is its smaller and cheaper counterpart, the Mavic Mini. The Mini recently got manual exposure controls, which make it a much more potent drone compared to what it started with. Both photos look pretty great, but we can see that the dynamic range on the Mavic Mini looks a bit off, with the darker bits being a bit too dark. However, for the price, I'd be damned if the difference makes up for it. In the first zoomed in picture, you can see there's a lot more noise in the Mavic Mini photo. That's also because it has smaller sensor, of course. You can see in the shadow areas that more foliage is coming through. However, weird enough, I have noticed that especially in the foliage, the Mavic Air 2 tends to make things a bit too Van Gogh, with a lot of abstract color mixing and such, while the cheaper Mavic Mini holds the photo more accurate to the original shapes. Again, pretty weird that the sun can be actually seen clearer in the Mavic Mini photo, which I wouldn't have expected. But I must say that the overall noise and image quality still goes to the Mavic Air 2. If we're looking in the darker area, we can again see better details in the Mavic Air 2 photo, which generally makes for a better looking photo when zoomed out. I'm really impressed with the Mavic Mini, I must say. As a conclusion, I have to say the order is this. The Mavic 2 Pro is the incontestable winner when it comes to these daylight photos. The Mavic Air 2 is on the second place, definitely, and then, well, I'm not really sure. So let's compare the Mavic Mini to the Mavic Air. Okay, I admit I didn't expect the Mavic Mini to actually be better than the Mavic Air 1, but I can clearly see much more detail in the shapes of the objects, although we could blame it partially on the sharpness setting. I can clearly see there is actually better details in the shadows too. The difference isn't extreme, and I feel like the Mavic Mini has slightly more noise, but I would definitely pick the Mavic Mini as the winner in the photo department versus the Air 1. Just look at the foliage and how precise the plants are defined in the image compared to the weird mix the Air is going for. So yes, I'm going to continue my conclusion by saying that the Mavic Mini is actually on the third spot when it comes to taking photos with these drones, better than the Mavic Air 1. However, keep in mind that the Mavic Air 2 has the advantage of HDR photos, which can totally change the look of the photo. as well as the 48 megapixel photos that, even though have slightly more noise, so they're not suitable for dark shots, it still provides a considerable amount of image details. So you went out and got yourself a drone or plan to get one. But what if I told you that you can actually make a lot of money with these and you don't have to be an expert? The most frustrating thing that me and some of my videographer friends have been through is just searching on YouTube, forums or Facebook groups just to learn bits of information about drones. But since everybody and their dad has a drone these days, you need to stand out. The biggest shift in terms of knowledge and progression happened about a year ago, and it was all in a weekend, when I discovered my first cinematography course from my now online mentor, Alex Harris. This guy filmed and directed all over the world and got into drones even before they were popular. He made a complete course on cinematography, custom flight and gimbal settings that can help you to get way better footage, shooting flat and situational color grading, how to edit 4K videos on old PCs, what equipment you need, and most importantly, exactly how to find clients and make them pay you a lot for your time, no matter where you live in the world. If you want to get $100 off from this complete course that will change your life, click the link down in the description or right here at the top, and you will find a lot more information about what the course is all about. And if you're interested in getting my free guide with the top 9 cinematic drone moves that can make you stand out, click right here at the top. Please leave a comment down below if you have any questions whatsoever, and I'll make sure to answer as fast as possible. See ya later, alligator!